Hi everyone, welcome to our Monday night adult formation. We have a special presentation tonight by Kristi Sebald. She is from Milwaukee Habitat for Humanity, and she joined the staff in January of 2020 and currently serves as a volunteer services and events manager. In addition, she helps engagement opportunities for all of Milwaukee Habitat's faith partners. She brings over 30 years of experience in working in ministry and community organizing in the areas of education, volunteerism, and team building. She also likes to go to State Fair because we sat at a table together in the summer.
Live music.
We looked across at each other and I'm like, why do I know you? It was very fun. Her husband grew up in Milwaukee and they relocated here from Phoenix, Arizona in 2016. She loves her adopted hometown and is thrilled to be part of the work that Milwaukee Habitat is doing to increase the availability of affordable housing in the neighborhoods of the city. Please help me welcome Kristi Sebald.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me all right? I'm a former second grade teacher. I prefer not to use the microphone. If that's okay for the recording, I think we'll go without it. So like Sue said, I started at Habitat in January of 2020. It's been an interesting journey, as you all know. 8 weeks after that, to the day we went and shut down. So here I was, first one in, thinking I was going to be first one out, or last one in, first one out. And just by God's grace, I'm still there. My job's changed a few times. But the thread of what my position has been and what I get to do is meet with people like you. I visit lots of congregations and communities of faith and share ways that Habitat is helping the community and how you can help Habitat do that. And so tonight what we're going to do, if you, on your table, if you can find the half sheet, we're going to spend just a little bit of time. I don't want to go too deep into this quiz, but I want to give you a taste of a larger opportunity that I know Sue is exploring. We offer a 2-hour housing, race, and equity workshop that digs into the root historical and business practices of why Milwaukee has a housing crisis today. There are a couple of books that I'd recommend, and part of what your homework after today is to learn more. A couple of books I recommend reading are, the first one is Evicted, is a book based here in Milwaukee, done by a research student out of UW-Madison. Really eye-opening to understand why there's a rental crisis and a affordable housing crisis in Milwaukee. The other book, and this plays into the quiz that we're going to do, is called The Color of Law. Stanford professor that wrote based on the situation in Oakland and San Francisco. So also very similar. So we're going to spend just a little bit of time on this housing and race quiz so that you get a taste of why we're in this affordable housing crisis today. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Habitat and what we're doing and what your congregation is already doing and can continue to do some new options for our faith partners. So just really, really grateful. I met some people yesterday and already this evening who've been connected to our Habitat affiliate in Milwaukee since the 90s. We are 40 years old. We were started in 1984, so we just celebrated our 40th anniversary. I always kind of set the table. Jimmy Carter did not start Habitat, never was employed by Habitat. But he became Habitat International's greatest champion, and so we are celebrating his life this month. His funeral was a few weeks ago. Carter was here in 1989, and that really spurred the start of our new home construction program. Prior to that, the first 5 years of our existence, we were rehabbing homes, some homes that were donated by churches or purchased by churches and donated to us. And then in 1989, we started building new construction homes. And as of today, I just looked, we've served over 1,500 families in the last 40 years with either new home ownership opportunities or home repairs. Those are the two programs we do. All right. So the content of the quiz is challenging, and so I just want you to be aware. We are here to have open conversation, and I just want you to keep an open mind. I want you to be able to listen to each other, stay engaged, expect to feel somewhat uncomfortable in this conversation. But it is a factual conversation based on historical data so that we can look at some things objectively. And we're not going to solve stuff tonight. We're just going to kind of bring some things up for conversation. And again, this quiz is a very small piece of a 2-hour workshop that is an opportunity if your congregation decides to host where you can dig deeper into this content. So the first couple of questions are based on national data, not just here in Milwaukee. And I think let's do it this way. I'm going to give you like 3 or 4 minutes to read through the quiz and circle the answers you think are the correct answers, and then we'll go through the actual answers and the background data on those. So about 3 or 4 minutes, and if you get done, go ahead and decorate the 2x4s too. I'll tell you more about those in a little bit. Everybody ready? Are we good? Okay. Again, we're going to go through this fairly quickly. You might have questions that we don't get to tonight in this part of the presentation, because I do want to make sure we finish on time and that we get to the fun stuff. So, all right. By 1940, how many Milwaukee County suburbs had used racially restrictive covenants in land deeds to prevent non-white people from owning or leasing property? How many think A? B? C? D? Somebody got the answers from yesterday's group. No. I believe it's Brown Deer and Oak Creek are the only ones that did not. And this is by 1940. So if you think back in the history of Milwaukee, so we're talking pre-World War II. I know, and one of the things that you get into when you do the longer workshop is you actually get to see like newspaper posts and legal documents, primary sources. I live in Wauwatosa. I know that Wauwatosa had racially restrictive covenants on their books by 1898. So that is a way of saying, and I like to read, I have good notes here from the person on our staff who put this together, which wasn't me. Oh, shoot. There we go. So a racially restrictive covenant is designated by the Federal Housing Administration as criteria for federal mortgage insurance implemented in city suburbs to prevent racial invasion by restricting new home buying to whites only. And so you can see this quote here. This is actually from Greendale in 1958. And the notes, some additional information. They were used by the FHA as a condition for construction loans at home builders to restrict new homes from being sold to people of color. Although racially restrictive covenants were written into private property contracts, they were recorded with the County Register of Deeds and enforced by the courts when violated. In Milwaukee, racially restrictive covenants actually preceded the establishment of the FHA, and as late as 1958, 10 years after the United States Supreme Court ruled that the restrictive covenants violated the 14th Amendment, still in Greendale, this was still being written into the deeds. So I take that back. It was Oak Creek and River Hills were the 2 Milwaukee suburbs that did not. And so the next question is going to show you, you're going to see there's 2 ends of the spectrum, or 2 issues at play that kind of parallel caused more issues. So let's go to the second one. So we talked about racially restrictive covenants. Now we're going to talk about redlining. So redlining is used as a mapping system to deter lending agencies from issuing mortgages to Black and immigrant families, primarily Russian Jews, and was implemented as part of the New Deal housing policy in 1933. So what percentage of Milwaukee County's neighborhoods were redlined in 1938? Let me think. A, B, C, D. It's actually C. 24% of the neighborhoods in Milwaukee County. And you can see on this map, these are the neighborhoods that were redlined. And then the yellow areas were kind of deemed, I can read it to you. It's easier if I read it. I should memorize this part. Let's see. All right, so blue, and this is a map from 1938 from the archives. So the blue neighborhoods, this is how this was described in real estate business and in legal practice deeds. Older, well-maintained homes, but still desirable. No residents of color. Yellow, definitely declining, but no residents of color. That's the yellow neighborhoods. And then red, this was hazardous for investments because over 80% was now people of color and immigrant families. And so this is pre-World War II. So you think about the makeup of Milwaukee at that time and how this was affecting not only people of color, but it was affecting Russian Jews and German immigrants and some of the other Japanese and Asian immigrants that were in our city at that time. So again, looking at the facts of history is not pleasant, but it gives you a picture of this has been an issue for a really long time. So we're going to jump ahead. 1962, the federal government had spent a total of $120 billion on new housing. So from the New Deal in 1933, so about 30 years, as a result of the effects of redlining and racially restrictive covenants, how much of this went to non-whites who made up 11.4% of the population? This is nationally. How many think 2%? 5%? 12%? 20%? Right, you would hope it would be, right? If it's 12% of the population, 12% of the dollars, it was 2%. And so that's a national statistic. Oops. So the federal New Deal housing policy was inequitably implemented to primarily benefit white America. And so in Milwaukee, and again, in other cities in the country, what happened here was there was racially restrictive covenants in the suburbs, and there was redlining in the city. And then in the late 60s and early 70s, a lot of the manufacturing jobs went away. And so we have, in this workshop that we do, there's actually another graph that's really interesting. The median income for families of color was actually quite high in the 60s and 70s. And then the jobs went away. And so the income graph is just stark. And so now you have families of color living in the city because their racially restrictive covenants won't let them move to the suburbs, and they're redlined, and they can't get jobs, and there's no jobs where they live. And so that was in the 70s. And so that also has it's a complicated problem. So another national statistic. Nationally, in the 11 years following the passage of the 44 GI Bill, there were 44 million mortgages given out to GIs through the VA. How many of those mortgages, out of 4 million mortgages, how many were given to black veterans? How many think A, B, C, D? So 30,000 out of 4 million mortgages were actually given to our black veterans. So again, in the legal system, inequity based on race. In 1968, So we're going to jump ahead a little bit. In 1968, the federal government passed the Fair Housing Act, and so racially restricted covenants and redlining were supposed to go away, and fair and equal rights for housing. But all of these other things compounded the issues, which continue even to today. Bringing it closer to home, Black Milwaukeeans were 8% of the population in 1960. To facilitate the construction of Milwaukee's highway system, a number of families lost their homes. What proportion of those displaced were Black families? So for those of you that were around in the 60s, right, I-94, I-43, I-45. How many think A, 20%? B? C? D? Yep. So for those of you that love Milwaukee history, as I've come to love Milwaukee history, so Bronzeville used to be a thriving Black community. You go out Martin Luther King Drive, which used to be Greenview Avenue before it was Martin Luther King Drive, and the commerce and the music and the jazz scene. It was Milwaukee's North Side business district. And over 8,000 Black and Brown owned homes and businesses were torn down as part of urban renewal. And part of the other really, one of the other facts is they tore down a bunch of homes and businesses along the 30th Street corridor, which is where I-43 was supposed to go. But I-43 went a couple miles east of that. And so the city has 3,000 lots that are empty today still from urban renewal in the 60s. Again, stimulated by federal money. So there's some great new construction and renovation construction happening at MLK and Holton. And I would just, if you guys ever want a tour, because those are some of the neighborhoods we are building in, I would love to give you guys a tour. Question 6, bringing it really close to home. This is only, what are we now, 2025, 17 years ago? Less than 20 years ago. How can 2008 be 17 years ago? Prior to the housing collapse and Great Recession that began in 2008, people of color were disproportionately targeted with subprime loans. What percentage of Black and Hispanic homebuyers were issued these loans as their best option, regardless of income? How many think A, B, C, D? So how many of you bought or sold a house right before 2008? My husband and I lived in Phoenix at the time. We bought a house in 2004. We refinanced in 2006 because our appraised value had gone like this. And in 2008, 9, 10, our appraised value was less than what we paid for our house originally. And so we lived in a very diverse neighborhood, and we're really fortunate that by God's grace, we were able to keep our house and stay there. 90% of the homes on our block in Phoenix were empty by 2010. People foreclosed and walked. And I know that happened in Milwaukee as well. 2008 was rough. It took us 10 years to recover and to be able to flip and sell, right side up, sell our house. Because we were stupid. just so you know. We bought low and then we thought, woohoo! Bonus question, because this gets us into what Habitat is doing to help with the housing situation. Median home price in Wisconsin in 2013, this is across the entire state, was $143,000. How much had it increased by 2023? So this data is 2 years old now, 2.5 old. How many think A, B, C, D? Median home price in Wisconsin is pushing, well, that's $300,000. So that's across the whole state. Here in Milwaukee, it's closer to $400,000.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Some of that is still being driven by, I don't know, the term is in here, but when you get out into some of the outer ring suburbs, the way they divide the lots, it has to be a half-acre lot, it has to be a certain size house. I know West Bend is dealing, that West Bend Habitat affiliate is dealing with that. How do you put a starter home on a property when it's supposed to be not a starter home? Like that, the zoning laws just affect, that's the word, the zoning laws affect what kind of house you can put on what property. And I know in West Bend and some of the Heartland and out in that direction, like they have to be half-acre lots. Well, we don't know them, but that would make sense. So this is a very real statistic on, so this is the comparison between, I think this is the housing prices, and this is median income in the state. And then the other home ownership rates by race over the last 120 years, really, the gap hasn't changed that much. So, this is one of my favorite maps. This is Milwaukee today. This is the 2020 census data. So every dot is 150 people. The light bluish grayish dots are Caucasian. Orange is black, red is Hispanic, dark blue is Asian. So it's still a very real challenge in our community today. I'm going to skip ahead. This is a statistic we share a lot, now bringing it back to habitat and home ownership. 1 out of 3 Milwaukee renters in the city are spending over half their income on rent. So our typical homeowner, not all, but our typical homeowner is a single parent, sometimes mom, sometimes a dad with a couple of kids, working at least one job, sometimes 2 or 3. If their income is even $2,000 a month or $2,500 a month, and the median rental right now is $1,200 a month in Milwaukee for a 2-bedroom. So if you're making $2,400 a month and you're spending half of it on rent, think about all the challenges that creates for a family around food and clothes. And I did an activity with your youth formation on a Sunday a couple of weeks ago where they got their roll of Smarties candies, and that was their budget for the month, and they had to put half, they started out half on housing, and now how many are you going to spend on transportation and internet and clothes and food, and they had to put something in every budget line. And some of those kids are like, I'm only going to eat once a day. Or I'm going to just ride my bike everywhere and I don't need a car. I'm like, that's going to work really well at today. I mean, people are out there doing it, right? But not ideal. So it helps kids see some really, really important choices that our families have had to make. The other, based on that other map and some of the other data that we have, we also know that in the 4-county metro Milwaukee area, 3 out of 4 white families own their home or have a mortgage, and 3 out of 4 black families do not own their home or have a mortgage. And we know this is nationwide. Home ownership is still the American foundation. It's homeowners, people that own their home have 400% on average higher wealth than people who rent. And so looking at all of that data, we come around to, I got a whole bunch of maps. If you do the larger, longer presentation workshop, you'll get a lot of map work to see how it plays out on things. I'll have to share this quote because Habitat, our mission is motivated by God's love. We bring people together to build homes, communities, and hope. And this is a quote from a Christian writer. His name is Henri Nouwen. The mystery of ministry is that we have been chosen to make our own limited and very conditional love the gateway for the unlimited and unconditional love of God. Therefore, true ministry must be mutual. And we put that into practice. Our founder, Millard Fuller, used to say that a Habitat house is a hand up, not a handout. All of our homeowners participate in building their home or their neighbors' homes. It's a very mutual process. They're intimately involved in the process from beginning to end. It usually takes about 9 to 12 months for a homeowner from the time they get accepted in our program to the time that they get their keys and get to move in. And so it's a process, and I'm hoping to show you that process and show you ways that you can get involved. Most common barriers for someone in low to middle income to become a homeowner is that a large down payment is required, the rising cost of housing, which we just looked at, and then still the denial of affordable loans based on debt, income, debt to income ratio, and other things. So what we do is we break down those barriers. And so for our new homeowners, there is no down payment required. All of our homes are meant for first-time home buyers. They're 1,300 to 1,400 square feet, 3 or 4 bedrooms, 1 or 2 bathrooms depending on the model. They come with a full basement. Everything is new. And right now, our average homeowner mortgage payment is $950 a month, and that includes insurance and property taxes and escrow. Yeah, right. So the reason we're able to do that is because we have just a really unique model. We have people like you who come and volunteer. On every home that we build, there are at least 15 volunteer group days, sometimes 18, it depends on the model, because we build some single story and some 2-story. But those 18 days of labor by volunteers saves us about $20,000 a house, just on labor. We're also blessed with some great corporate partnerships. So if any of this tweaks your mind and you're like, oh, I know somebody, or I could, we're always building network and building connections. But we have some fabulous in-kind donors. Johnson Controls donates all our HVAC systems. A.O. Smith donates all our water heaters. Kohler donates all our toilets and faucets. Nationally, Whirlpool donates all the refrigerators and stoves for every Habitat house, all over the country. Wow. Right? We had a little supply chain issue during 2020 with refrigerators. Right, so we estimate, and there are some other things in-kind wise, we estimate the in-kind donations are about $11,000 on every house. So right there, you can see, and then because we're building at scale, we're building 34 homes this year. We're actually in the top 25 single home builders for production numbers in the entire county. So we're building, more than most people are building, most developers are building. And then also, and you guys have been part of this as well, the financial sponsors and financial contributions is why we can offer our homes with no down payment. And we also subsidize our homes a little bit. It's not a free house. Every Habitat homeowner pays a mortgage. But we want to, the math never works if you're a business person, I'm sorry. We're a nonprofit. So we can build a house for less than $250,000. That's our all-in cost with our construction team, all the labor and the free stuff, and the things that we do subcontract out, like the foundations. Nobody else is building houses for under $300,000. No. So that right there we're saving. And then through the generous donations of our faith partners, our corporate partners, some funding from the city and the county and the federal government, we basically subsidize the gap between what it costs us to build the house and what we sell it for, which we always appraise and comp the homes at what's happening in the neighborhood, so that that homeowner isn't pricing their neighbors out of the neighborhood. And right now our average home mortgage is about $145,000. So we're subsidizing about $100,000 still on top of that. Our other program, and this is for people who own their home in the neighborhoods where we serve, and it's a growing area. We primarily build our new homes on the northwest side because those empty lots are available, like I was telling you about, remember from urban renewal? City sells us those for $1, so that's another way that we keep our land costs down. But our affordable home repair neighborhoods, we go into more neighborhoods, some south side neighborhoods now as well. And this is for people who own their home, but maybe are on a fixed income, probably on a fixed income. And so we have funding, again, all kinds of interesting, I don't do that part, but funding sources that allow us to cover up to 80% of the project costs. You know, so for a new roof on a big house, you're usually talking 30,000 retail probably. And we can do that for a sliding repayment scale for a homeowner, so that fits in their income. It's a 10-year loan, and they can get a new roof. We also do lead remediation. That's become a big, big project list for us. We do all kinds of lead paint abatement. The research, there's lead pipes too, and the city's going through and changing out leads. We don't do any of that, but the lead paint and the dust is the medical college has done the research that that's what really makes kids sick, is the lead paint dust, not the pipes in the water. And so we're able to offer free lead remediation to homeowners in the city of Milwaukee as well. And then I also always want to point out, like, we're a small piece of the solution. We're growing, but the situation in Milwaukee, as we talked about in the beginning, is huge. And so about 5 years ago now, the city came together and created the Community Development Alliance. And I would encourage you, along with those 2 books that I mentioned, this is a great website to go look and learn and do some reading. It's cda.org, super easy. Community Development Alliance, and on there you'll find a link to the community housing plan. It's a super well done, about 12-page PDF, and it lays out the city's plan for addressing all housing needs across the city over the next 10 to 15 years. So the priorities in there are to increase and preserve Black and Latino home ownership, increase and preserve affordable rentals, and create 32,000 new homeowner opportunities. We're doing 34 this year, and that's up for us. It's going to take us a while to get to the 2,000. So there are other organizations. Axe Housing also is working on home ownership. Lutheran Social Services just did an affordable apartment building that is targeting veteran rental, low-income veteran and disability rentals. There's senior living, there's mental health housing needs. So like I said, we're a very small piece of this. The needs, a big piece, but out of the whole spectrum, we're the only metro area in the United States that has this, a comprehensive housing plan to address all forms of housing need in our city. So it's something to be really proud of, and we're really excited. Our CEO was part of the plan, making the plan, so I was proud of that. And then just touch on our goals again. We launched a strategic plan a couple years ago. We had been building about 20 homes a year, went down to 11 during COVID. But we know the need is there, and the CDA is asking us to grow, and so we're on track. By 2028, our plan is to build more than 40 a year, 40 new. And then do 80 to 100 of those critical repairs that I was mentioning. That would make us, some people ask this, if we can get to building 40 or 45 homes a year, we'll be in the top 10 affiliates in the entire Habitat network. Just kind of cool. This is a typo. It should say 30, it said 32, and I went to change it to 34, and we're not doing 324 homes. My construction team would shoot me with it. So 34 new homes in Milwaukee this year. And here are ways that you guys can help. Our faith communities are so important to us. Partly because of your prayers. Like that, to me, that's the most important. Prayer is powerful. And our homeowners need your prayers as they're going through the system. The people applying who want to qualify and they're not sure if their income is high enough or they're worried their debt is too. Pray for all of those people who are looking for affordable housing. Pray for our construction team because they're out there in this weather. And pray for our donors and our leadership team. And so Habitat was actually started by the faith community. I don't know if it was St. Elizabeth, there were a couple Catholic parishes involved, but I know the charter, they signed the charter for us to become an affiliate in the basement of Bayview Lutheran. Yeah. So, no, Bay Shore Lutheran. Sorry, I get north and south mixed up. We're going to talk about each of these a little bit more individually, but there's ways to volunteer and beyond just swinging a hammer or coming out to the build site. Your parish has sponsored or helped sponsor our homes with financial contributions going back as far as the early 2000s. And I know volunteer-wise into the 90s.
Wait. It had to have been the early 90s, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
The early 2000s.
Yeah. So I talked to Janice Sherman yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good
And so,
buddy, yeah.
great. And so you guys have been a long time faith partner with us. I did want to share with the sponsorship piece. About 4 years ago, right after COVID, we were really blessed with some really committed Catholic connections through the Archdiocese and through Family of 5 parishes, which is kind of right in the neighborhoods where we build. Father Tim Kitsky has become a big champion for us, and also then Catholic Financial Life. And what they've done has kind of led the charge with some financial donations the last 4 years. So every year, 21, 22, 23, 24, we've had a Catholic coalition house that other parishes have contributed to. Divine Mercy, you guys did last 2023, sent us a financial contribution that went to that house. St. Francis of Assisi, they bring a group out to volunteer. And so it's this really cool opportunity for the Catholic parishes to come together. The way that we do that is all the financial contributions that come in during that year go towards that house, that Catholic house. And then those 18 volunteer days, we open those up to all the parishes. So Sue gets an email, the next Catholic Build Day is coming up, and then she can send out the link to people that are interested, and you can sign up, and you'll get to build with some people from Family of 5 or St. Francis or Divine Mercy or some of the other parishes. The other way to volunteer, and Sue, this is kind of for you, is if you all wanted to come as a group, if you wanted to come as a group from your parish, we would work with you. Caroline Martini is my coworker who does all the scheduling, and we can schedule you for a group day from St. Elizabeth Ann Seton on a different house. It wouldn't be on the Catholic house, but we're building 34 houses. We need a lot of groups. So if you guys wanted to come, just know that it would be on a different house, not on a Catholic house as a group. The 2x4s are what are on your table, and I'm hoping you'll have a little time to write a message or a prayer or your favorite scripture passage on there. If you can't think of one, you can think about Hobby Lobby and what was your favorite Hobby Lobby saying, and write that on there. We put all those boards in the walls like you see in the picture, and then the homeowners know that those blessings are surrounding them once their house is done. Providing lunch is another opportunity. When there is a Catholic house build day, we always ask for another parish to bring lunch. So like Divine Mercy has brought lunch out for another group on a build day. And we'll let you know ahead of time what that is. And it can be sandwiches or whatever you like. And then one that's not up here that is new this year is when our homeowners finish and close, we gather on their front lawn for a dedication. Some of you may remember or have been to a home dedication. It's the best day, right? They've got their keys, their kids are running around, if they have kids, just picking out their paint colors, and we gather and we bless the house. And we have typically been providing some fill the pantry welcome home baskets. What we're doing differently, we used to have, there were a couple congregations that would do like big drives, and they would like put laundry baskets of stuff together. We don't have a place to store those for 34 families. So we're asking individual congregations or parishes to sponsor one family. And I have lists, I have the indoor list for the pantry and an outdoor, like a hose and a rake and a bag of salt for the sidewalk. So we would get you the list, you would get a family assigned to you, we could send you their picture and their story so you can be praying for them, and then we would ask you to bring their gift to their dedication when that happens. Scheduling that is always a little tricky, but Beth, we can talk about that. Because it's like any mortgage, right? They're working, they're finishing their program, they're doing their sweat equity, they're doing their financial coaching, they're getting their finances lined up, and then you gotta wait for underwriting. Right? So we work with 9 local lenders, different financial organizations and banks, and they have mortgage products that work for our families. So each homeowner has a mortgage that's specifically tailored to them. But then, like anytime you buy a house, it's like, your closing date is next week? Okay, I've got to be ready. And so then that's when we schedule the dedication. So, all right. And I kind of skipped through. Oh, one last thing about volunteering. Besides volunteering on the build site, we can also have you volunteer if you're interested at our restores. What's that?
I just took stuff there this weekend.
Oh, excellent. So yeah, the Restore is our resale shop. So there's a bunch of ways you can support that. You can donate product if you're cleaning out your closets or your tool chest. And we don't take clothes, we don't take soft goods, but furniture, appliances, small appliances, dishes. And we have 3 locations. The closest one to you all is on 108th, right, just off between Cold Spring and Beloit. But we have another store in Wauwatosa that's on 114th in Burleigh. And then our largest store is actually in Franklin on 27th and Rawson in the old Gander Mountain building. Volunteering at the Restore is a little less physically demanding and shorter shifts. So our build site days, you would expect to come out for a full day, 8 to 3. At the Restore, you can do shifts 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, or a full 6-hour shift. We're open Tuesday through Saturday. That Restore is a blast, so fun. And then the other piece of our Restore we don't talk about a lot is we do have a deconstruction team. So if you're planning a remodel project, our decon team can come and help take out your cupboards, salvage whatever you want to salvage. There's a small fee to have them come in and do that, but then everything that they salvage they take to the Restore and resell. And so all the revenue from our Restores then helps to fund the houses as well too. Yeah.
We did a remodel on our bathroom, and they came in and took to the studs.
Oh.
Everything was gone.
That's great.
This is amazing.
And they do it in a day, less than a day probably. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
We also do our decon team is also available. It's not as happy as a remodel, but we have done estate clearouts too. So sometimes when someone passes away, rather than having an auction, they just call us. We did the Bradley Center before. We have seats from the Bradley Center before they tore that down. Oh, and actually, you guys would appreciate this. We actually deconned St. Bernard's in Tosa.
Oh, really?
We did.
They
Yeah.
sell the pews?
I don't know what they took. I know they didn't take everything, but I know our truck was there like for 3 days. Yeah. So, and I live right there, you guys. I'm heartbroken. Yeah. All right. I think that's all. So again, we have the longer Housing Raise and Equity Workshop. There's deconstruction. And what questions do you guys have?
So you mentioned the sweat equity. Do the recipients of the homes, they have to put in, I remember that from years ago, X amount of hours or whatever into their house?
So the process for a homeowner is they apply, and we have hundreds of families applying every month. Our family services team then takes all of those applications and looks through their documents and qualifies them and then So once they're accepted into our program and they get assigned to a house, they have building sweat equity, or some, if they're older, they can do their sweat equity at the restore. They have financial classes they take. Are any of you familiar with Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey? So all our homeowners take Financial Peace. And there's some other HUD financial coaching they have to take. They do community service hours. So like in March, I'm going to see if I can have a homeowner come with.
That would be awesome.
And they can get a couple hours of community service hours. So yeah, they have to do all those hours. They have to show proof of income and all of that. But it does take like 9 to 12 months for them to finish. So yeah.
Okay, if your houses get resold, what happens?
That's another great question. Our houses are always, so it's in their contract, it has to always be owner occupied. They can't sell it, they can't move and rent it. We have had homeowners that, like a really good friend of mine who is a homeowner, was a homeowner, built her house in 2006, used it as a starter home, raised her 3 boys, bought something bigger, sold it to her sister.
Okay, that's why I was like, do they find people that are just as
Yes.
qualified to go?
So they can sell it on the open market.
Okay.
If they're going to sell it within the first 10 years, we have first right of refusal. So we'll buy homes back in certain situations and rehab them and then put another homeowner qualified in there. That doesn't happen very often. And our foreclosure rate is really low too, like less than 4% over the last 4 years. It does happen where somebody lost their job. COVID was a little rough. There was some extra funding through United Way for foreclosure prevention to help people through that. So, yeah. Other questions?
How are you trained?
Me?
No, our volunteers.
Oh, good question. You don't need to know anything to come and volunteer. Even if you've never swung a hammer. Our construction staff works with volunteer groups every day, Wednesday through Saturday. And so what we do is when you sign up, you'll know what task you're doing for that day. So it might be framing, it might be painting, it might be laying flooring. So the first 15 or 20 minutes, our staff talks through safety and then shows you how to do the task. And then they're right there guiding you every day. We have paid staff on site every day with our groups. So, which is a shift from the 90s. I mean, we used to have volunteer staff lead houses, our habituals. They would actually just pick up the tools and go to the build site and build the house. That's kind of evolved over the years with some stricter safety things. I have pictures of people on second-story trusses with no safety gear on back in the 90s. So yeah.
A wild time.
And honestly, and you guys know, like Ed is one of our longtime habituals. We had another wonderful gentleman, Bob Patton. Mike Moran was a member at Three Holy Women. They used to house lead, and they would just pick up the stuff from the warehouse on a Saturday and go build. And we haven't replaced them. Like, we don't have those kinds of volunteers who have the time or the skill set to actually lead. So we have grown our construction staff. And so when you come to volunteer, there's always somebody on site with you. Yeah. Good question.
Did you say all your houses have basements now?
Uh-huh. Yeah, not garages. We have, but every house gets a parking pad. So it's actually ready for a garage if a homeowner wanted to put a garage on it. Unfinished basements and hookups for washer and dryers are in the basement. The other cool thing with Johnson Controls donation is our houses have central air, which is also unique in the city.
Yeah.
So a lot of those big old houses don't have central air. And I heard, don't share this too widely, we had a beta project a few years ago coming out of COVID. Somebody donated, one company donated solar for 30 of our homes. And I just heard we might be getting some major funding for solar, possibly, for like maybe the next 4 years worth of houses. So don't share that too widely. Yeah.
Excuse me, what's the minimum age for your volunteers?
Sure. On the build site, it's 16 with an adult.
Okay.
Typically, we ask for 1 adult for every 4 teens. So our staff is not equipped to babysit a youth group. But if you want to bring, you could bring 3 or 4 kids with an adult. We can make that work. At the Restore, it's 14.
Oh, okay.
Great question.
Also with an adult?
Yeah.
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 Do the restores, do they pick up furniture?
Yeah, we'll do for the larger things, like if you just have a blender, you could just bring it, but on my card, if you guys want, I have my cards here, and the Restore information's on the back. You would call the Restore number and ask for Katie. Katie's our logistics manager, and she can arrange for pickup. They usually can do that within like the week, like give them a week's notice. Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else? We really appreciate your time, you guys. Please decorate the 2x4s. They really are a wonderful way to give a hug to a homeowner. And we'll hope to see you, a bunch of you out volunteering. It'll be great. Anything else?
Our team belonged for candy.
Oh, was your
Yes.
kids were in that group? Yeah.
Yes.
It's so eye-opening for them, and I always tell them, like, go home and ask your, like, my first question for them is, how many of you know if your parents own their home?